Today we are going to do an interview with Miss Diane吉日, and nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you too.
So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Liverpool in England, and I grew up in Liverpool, and then I moved to London to work as a graphic designer, and I really enjoyed the job, but I had itchy feet.
Ah, I see.
And I really, really wanted to travel the world. So I'd always been curious about foreign countries, you know, because as you know, England is a small island.
Yeah.
So I'd always been excited about going overseas, like it was a big adventure. And I read a lot of books about different countries, and I had a collection of dolls.
Cool.
little tiny dolls in a plastic case. And they were all wearing national costume. So when my friends and friends of the family went overseas, they always bought me a little doll from that country. And I used to look at them every day and just be like, oh, as they were lined up in my bedroom. I was like, oh, what kind of country do they come from? What language do they speak? What lifestyles have they got? So I was really curious about going overseas. So I kind of decided when I was about 3 years old that I wanted to travel the world. I was excited about that. So I decided to save, and I worked as a graphic designer in the day, and at night I worked in a restaurant as a waitress. Saved money, and then I quit my job. I bought a big backpack, and I left England and just went traveling, so around the world by myself. So I've been to about 42 countries.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and that was the start of a new life.
Yes. That sounds like fun too.
I know, a lot of fun, a lot of crazy memories, really fun.
That's good. And what is an English rakugo?
English rakugo is storytelling.
Yeah.
It's very traditional style storytelling. It started about 400 years ago. And it's basically comedy storytelling.
Okay.
But you tell a story, but you play all of the characters. So it's not just narration, you actually play the characters.
Okay.
And you can use two props, like a fan, a paper fan, and a kind of a handkerchief, a tenugui. You can use these to be different props in the story. So basically, it's storytelling, but it's recently becoming known as sit-down comedy. Yeah. Because you do it all kneeling down and tell the story, And it's all based on your imagination, because that's all you have is yourself and your props. So it's basically a world of imagination.
And creative.
Yes, it is.
That's good. And by traveling so many countries, why did you pick Japan?
Why Japan? I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with Japan. I mean, I've enjoyed every country I've been to.
Yeah.
There's something great about every country, but I like the very traditional side of Japan. And since I was a child, I was interested in sort of antiques. And even in England, instead of going to the amusement park, I always wanted to go to the castles, or graveyards. So it's kind of a weird kid. But when I came to Japan, there's a very rich history here, and so I like the old traditional places, kimono, and I just found a lot of things that inspired me here.
That's good.
Yeah, especially being an artist. There's such beautiful art here.
Yes, there is. And how did you start out to become a rakugo?
Rakugo ka. Yeah. Ka is the person, performer, so rakugo ka. I was lucky actually. I was introduced to a very well-known rakugoka called Katsurashi Jaku-san. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was a Japanese rakugoka, and he was a real sort of like challenger, and he wanted to perform rakugo in English.
Yes.
So he was studying in an English language school, and he performed rakugo in English overseas and in Japan. And his English teacher was a friend of mine.
Okay.
This is just a coincidence. And he called me one day and asked me if I would be the ochako, which is a kind of stage assistant for this famous rakugo performer. And I didn't know what rakugo was. I'd never seen it. And I said, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know what rakugo is. It's like, no, don't worry about it. We'll tell you what to do. But you get to wear kimono.
Cool.
And I was like, really? I'll do it. Okay, pick me. And that was the only reason I said yes.
Oh.
was because I didn't have a kimono of my own at the
Oh.
time. So the chance to wear a kimono was just so exciting. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And that was the first time I'd watched Rakugo.
Oh,
And he
okay.
performed in English, an old traditional story, and I loved it. It was like taking you on a little adventure,
Cool.
all through storytelling, you know, and I just loved it. And it's very animated, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So I was asked sometimes to be the Ochako at his performances of Rakugo in English, and I just really, really liked it. Decided to study myself, went to school.
What kind of specific training did you do in school?
Well, you have to obviously learn about the stories and the history behind them, and so you have to do a little bit of backup study because a lot of the stories were written over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So if I have a specific story that took place 100 years ago, then I watch samurai films, so I can get the feel for the story and how a samurai would sit. Because obviously the posture of a samurai is very different to a little old man, so you have to pay attention to detail.
Yeah.
And eye direction, because you're playing all of the characters, you have to change your eye direction, so you're not just looking straight ahead. And also you perform all the stories kneeling down on a cushion, so from that position you have to be able to walk and to run, stand up, sit down, whilst you're kneeling down. So you have to practice that and how to use the props, using them to represent particular items in the story. So that was really fun, which is very much like mime. I was always interested in mime, pantomime.
There we go.
Just watching it, I never really studied it, but I was always like really intrigued by mime. So in Rakugo, it's very animated and you get to play. So I really like that.
Do you perform in English or in Japanese?
I perform in English and in Japanese, and sometimes mixed, bilingually, depending on the audience.
Oh, okay.
And sign language, and studying sign language, so I do some stories in sign language. But yeah, it depends on the audience, We want you to do it in English today, but just throw in some Japanese to help out, so yeah.
Okay. Did you have any difficult challenges when performing, and how do you overcome them?
Well, a challenge in performing is making sure that the audience can visualize the scene. It's very important for them to paint a picture inside their own heads. So you have to make it very clear what's going on in the story and where you are and who's speaking.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge for me in the beginning was if there were maybe 3 men all about the same age. When I was performing, did the audience know which character's speaking now or not, And if I was performing for an audience of foreigners, maybe overseas, that have never been to Japan, how much do they know about Japan? Do they know enough about the culture to understand what I'm talking about, or should I throw in a little bit of narration just to help? Like manju is a bean cake, a sweet bean cake, a sticky bean cake. But most people overseas have never seen manju. They don't know what it is, so it kind of puts a question mark in their head.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And you can't really be completely satisfied if you haven't visualized it well. So I changed the story to sushi. It's the same story, but I just changed manju to sushi. So the people overseas, everybody knows what sushi is.
That's cool.
So sometimes I adapt, have to adapt the story, even for Japanese children.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of Japanese children don't even really know about their old culture, their own country, so I have to throw some things in to help them out too. So.
That's good.
Yeah, so the story changes for the audience sometimes, and and for where I'm performing.
Did you have any anxieties about living in Japan and to become a rakugoka?
No, not really, because I've always been excited about foreign countries. I like the challenge of going to a new country and trying to survive, in a different culture with a different language. So that was exciting. So it never bothered me because I've travelled a lot anyway. I've been to 42 countries, so that was never a problem. I was more excited than nervous. Definitely. Rakugo, well, it was a world that was unknown to me. And when I first started performing in 1998, there were no very few female Rakugo performers, so I had the challenge of trying to choose stories that felt natural, comfortable, because most of the characters in the stories were men.
Yeah.
So I kind of changed the stories, you know, you can rewrite them, and just arrange the story a little bit to introduce female characters. And yeah, I was never really nervous. The audiences were great. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so you get a lot of energy from the audiences, and if they're laughing, you know, it helps to build your confidence.
Yeah.
So it's a whole learning process from the first time you do the story to maybe the 10th time. It changes anyway, naturally, you know, with audience reaction. Yeah.
I think you're very brave, and I look up to you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I think I'm lucky. I found something that I really enjoy, which started as a hobby, and it turned into a job, you know, so...
It's like you're not working at all.
Exactly. It's like I'm getting paid to play.
That's
but
true.
yeah, I think that's the best thing, is to find a hobby that you really love and then make it your career, you know.
I'll take your advice on that.
Good advice, believe me.
And I heard your name has a specific meaning. Can you please tell us what it means?
Yeah, Diane Kichijitsu is my stage name. Diane is my real name.
Okay.
So when I came to Japan, people used to say, "Oh, Diane Kichijitsu." And I was like, "What?" And I looked it up in the dictionary, and it's like lucky day, auspicious day. So it appears, Diane Kichijitsu Day appears in the Japanese calendar so many times during the year. And when people are getting married, they always check the calendar to make sure it's a Kichijitsu Day.
Oh, really?
Diane Kichijitsu Day, because it's a lucky day.
Yeah.
And there's a Butsumetsu no Hi, which is an unlucky day. So people always check to make sure that they're getting married on a good day. And I thought, well, that's a really lucky name then. It has a lucky meaning. So as a joke, I started to use it. People would say, "What's your name?" "Oh, Diane Kichijitsu." I go, "Oh, Diane Kichijitsu, okay." And it made people laugh, and so that's why I kept it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any message for those who's studying English that's trying to get out of Japan?
Yeah, well, I would definitely recommend traveling. If you want to learn English, then just go. It's the fastest way to learn, just through experience. And you can learn a lot more from living and surviving in English than you can, you know, from a book.
Yeah.
And that's really important. Second thing is to always speak with a smile, you know, if you're meeting people for the first time. Because even if you're nervous and panicking, if you smile, it helps you relax, and the person that you're talking to feels more relaxed. So that's really powerful, to smile. And to not be afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Because if you're afraid of making mistakes, you won't try. You'll be afraid of speaking, and so you won't improve. So it's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's natural.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing if you know, if you make a mistake in English, you're not going to die from it.
I agree.
So, and you learn from that mistake. And I think it's important, you know, to be able to make mistakes and get over it. And not be too nervous. That's definitely important. And just not to be afraid of challenging yourself. Yeah, and you'll naturally improve. But the most important thing is to enjoy speaking English. It's like, you know, if you're enjoying it, then the person listening to you is going to enjoy it. And then you'll have, you know, fun conversation. The more you speak, the more you improve. So that's really important. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, it was a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you. Very nice meeting you.